I was a huge skeptic of the whole thing.
You don't like Lex Fridman?
He's an imposter. Domain-specific AGI who may be not as capable of, running a humanoid robot, but can definitely self-improve with an endless cycle, for example, in medical sphere. I don't think that search engine is exposed to any concrete risk because it's just different thing.
Hi, I'm Greg Mazdrid, and this is my podcast on trends of development of our society and the future of humanity. Today, here with me is Andrey Volodin, the man who has developed neural networks since 2016, the man behind neural networks in Prisma AI, one of the leading startups in that field, early adopters of that technology, machine learning expert, researcher, developer, and connoisseur, the man who speaks to ChatGPT in a way that no one can. Hi, Andrey.
Hi, thanks for having me here. Such a humbled introduction.
Okay, let's start digging deeper into the topic of neural networks. We are both ChatGPT aficionados, and I am sure that we will have many insights on how to speak to that neural network, and not only that, but other related topics. Let's start with your forecast for the upcoming, let's say, 1 or 2 years of development of AI. There are many people who say that they are very apprehended about this, that this poses an existential threat to a human race, that we might be wiped out by an unfriendly artificial intelligence. Are you on board with that rhetoric, or are you more of a skeptic?
Yeah, so we are so early team. And given that I believe that we are so early, it is kind of natural for me to fluctuate with my attitude to what's happening. Because like 6 months ago, I was a huge skeptic of the whole thing. Like I was in a bar here in Almaty, and the guy was pitching me ChatGPT 3 at the moment. And I was like, come on, this is like next word bullshit generator. This is not going to disrupt anything. And now I'm like the biggest ChatGPT fan you can imagine. I'm using it every time. I recently got banned for like 24 hours because I had too many requests. And this is like materially changed my life. I felt like I'm missing the most like important instrument in my toolkit.
Wow.
But And so this kind of like illustrates that it is maybe a bit premature to make forecasts and to form concrete opinions on stuff, because when initial hype with Yudkowsky went with bombing the data centers and stuff, I was interested in it. I understood that he's maybe too radical on a too radical side of the spectrum, but I was interested in discussion and the hearings in the Senate, what's happening there. And I thought that, wow, if, humanity talks about regulation in so early, right? So, and since we discuss as a society the regulations of some sorts after such a short period of time since the inception, I thought that we are kind of like on a good track. But recently, I've heard more opinions. I actually enjoyed. I'm not a huge fan of Lex Fridman podcasts, but he had a great George Hod's appearance. He's a very smart guy who jailbroke the iPhone and did a lot of great stuff. And I heard him, and he kind of like persuaded me that maybe regulations aren't a good thing. And also there is a guy called Jeremy Howard. He's making probably the most popular course for deep learning in the field. Mm-hmm. And he also says that maybe the future that comes doesn't need government regulation. Maybe it needs more of a power decentralization and open source to balance the ability to use AI from the big companies and the decentralization. And so this really kind of like the discourse is very ongoing. So it 1 month, I think, maybe the AGI is already here, and maybe some bad people can turn it into automatic agent who can do harms. And part of me still thinks that that's true. But then I think, well, maybe this fast takeoff isn't, going to happen that fast. And, there is no evidence truly to think that the fast takeoff in the meaning of, Skynet will happen in the foreseeable future. And maybe we should focus more on regulating what humans do with the AI rather than how we do AI, how big model do we train and stuff. So I generally asking your question is I try to refrain from giving exact forecast because I kind of proved myself being horrible at at forecasting at least near future, like at least 3 months future in the AI because the field is crazy. It's been very fast pacing since 2014 when the initial AlexNet became popular, and it's been evolving really fast. But now it is almost singularity where each week, like when we record this yesterday, Llama 2 was released by Facebook, and this is probably as much of a event as the maybe initial ChatGPT because it allows commercial use. So we can only imagine what thousands of developers that are already training their fine-tuned models will do. So, but maybe the answer is too long, but generally I'm very optimistic about both the AI field and the human race existing together. And generally I'm very excited about how quick and how significant it will change my life, particularly in the life of my projects and the team that I work on.
I like being optimistic as an approach to life, and generally I'm also optimistic about many things. But I'm still not convinced that this is the way to go as regarding the AI development, because I find Eliezer Yudkowsky's points about dangers of AGI or ASI, artificial superintelligence, taking over the world and destroying humanity. I find those points rather convincing, and I still haven't seen any decent refutation of his arguments. So he says that if we create a being much more powerful than ourselves, this poses very big risks, not of some evil people, bad guys using AIs to kill other people, for example. Not that kind of risk, although that one exists as well. But there's another risk that those super AIs just destroy us for the sake of their own goals, not because they hate humans, but because humans are made of atoms that could be used in some other way, for example. You are not too worried about that?
Part of me is worried, but I feel like it's maybe a bit early to be frightened about it because it is a material risk. So it is, let's say, measurable. So it's I'm not in the complete optimistic camp that says, well, that's just matrix multiplication that inherently can't be dangerous. I think that it actually can be. With the right, engineering done, and with the some smart people doing some bad things with it, it is definitely gonna expose us as a society to some risks. But currently, we are already exposed to very, very concrete risks that we face right now, and I feel like maybe it is more important for us to focus on problems that is caused by and can be caused by AI right now, like misinformation, media diet that is basically controlled by neural networks already. We definitely should be paying attention on how imbalanced access to the AI nowadays, like that only the big tech who can spend like $20 million per training can train those models. So this creates a very imbalanced situation where, for example, we as users can only access, say, ChatGPT through controlled environment with the chat, and they can ban us and stuff. But people at OpenAI, not only they can access the model more freely, but they also can access more smarter models that weren't optimized or fine-tuned for ethics, for example, or LHF. And we know from the literature, from the scientific literature, that those models are more capable than publicly released. And all of those things, especially when used in bad intentions by bad people, can do very material harm, in a very near future. While the existence of some, independent AGI who does bad things for some reason, and it is completely uncontrollable by us, where we can even unplug the electricity and, we can stop them because it replicates. This is, for now, feels like maybe, like a B-movie plot a little bit. While I certainly now I'm convinced that at some point we will face such a problem, but maybe we shouldn't be worried too much about it right now, because it kind of shifts our focus from doing harm right now towards something that will potentially do harm in the future. So that's why I'm not denying it. I'm with current GPT-4, let's say, capabilities, it's already, to me, it's convincing that at some point. So I actually believe that AGI is not, research papers away, it is engineering hours away. So I think that GPT-4 is already kind of like the missing piece, where we can already assemble the AGI with the right amount of effort. But it will take us some time, but it will take us very short time to see how neural nets will do manipulation for our lives without us even understanding it. And I feel like we should focus more on giving AI to more people, so we can, so people can run AI models locally in their PCs, and have, it's, there is a always dual use technologies. Like computer itself can be used badly, and it doesn't mean we should be scared about computers and their capabilities. It means that we should give more people, give more people access to computers and give them software patterns and behavior patterns to protect themselves. And this is kind of like transfers to the AI field as well, where we shouldn't be worried about AI models as an inherently bad thing. We should be worried about, misuse of the AI and how other people can balance out those misusages.
Yeah, I agree with most of your points, but doesn't it sound like when you say that we shouldn't shift our attention, our focus from these current problems with misinformation, inequality, and access to neural networks, etc., we shouldn't shift those focus from those problems to the long-term problems of artificial general intelligence posing some risks to humanity, or artificial superintelligence posing such risks? Doesn't it sound like saying we should focus on gun-carrying laws instead of international treaties banning nuclear proliferation, for example? Those are both very important topics, and we should think in advance how to prevent, for example, the global nuclear war. That's why there are some restrictions in place. And with artificial superintelligence, the problem is that once it emerges, there will be not too much time. Maybe there will be no time at all to do anything once it's here already.
Yeah, so, me being a neural net engineer, that gives me kind of like an understanding of internals of the how they work. And so a lot of folks in our field tend to devalue the accomplishments of the GPT-4 by saying that this is just a statistical generator and this is just some matrix multiplications. And I was such a guy a few months ago. But nonetheless, even though I kind of like admit that current state of the LLMs is like basically incredible, and we basically have intelligence in our hands, artificial intelligence in our hands, but I can't deny that the knowledge of how they work internally. And so by itself, the let's say the most capable model right now is GPT-4. It's still actually really just a bunch of matrix multiplications. So even if you train like, GPT-5 or GPT-19, I don't know, whatever, it may be like 10 trillion parameters, it will never be able to even, set an alarm for you. Like never, actually. So it's just
if it has plugins, it can.
But on its own, it is not capable of doing it. So it can do a lot of things, surprisingly, like reason and abstract thinking and problem solving. But it can do like even basic thing. So it has to be a part of a bigger system, like an ensemble, where that system uses this AI as a building block. So, for example, it should be, let's say we are scared of some potential AI who can harm financial markets because it can, hack stuff and, control the stock markets and do some crazy stuff. But so in order for this bad model to do it, it has to, build a very sophisticated system which kind of like has very direct instructions to do very particular bad things by in it, and it takes enormous level of engineering to achieve that. So I'm not saying it's impossible. So it is possible, and I actually do believe that it's possible. Like today, given that we can, write code with an infinite speed and we can experiment with infinite speed, potentially we have all the building blocks that could be needed for it to be created. But we need like a very, very big and talented team of, bad but intelligent guys who will create this, and
or well-intentioned intelligent guys who think they're doing good but actually doing bad things.
But this is even less likely, because given how AI safety discourse is right now, and how popular it is, and how fashionable it is to say how safe each model that comes, and how we don't even mention Hitler in their prompts and stuff like that. So this is even less probable. But my point is that in order to create such a system, we will need like enormous amount of effort, and this is why I believe that regulating like how people use AIs is more important than regulating what AI should be like and how it should be trained, because AI itself, as we know it, can't do harm like at all. So it just can't. So it is as harmful as a computer by the concept. So it's just a mathematical model that can do stuff. And so the only reason it can do harm is that when it is misused. And so I strongly believe that regulating misusage is more important right now. If we will get good at regulating misusage at this current level of threats, then when it will come to the bigger threat that you mentioned, where independent AI agent self-replicates, hacks every computer in the world, and like doing some crazy stuff to us, or maybe controlling robots, then we will have a good infrastructure and good framework of things to how to prevent it, because we know already how to regulate this. And if we will focus solely on making matrix multiplication safe from bad intentions, I feel like we can miss the train of the actual harm, where as the democratization of AI goes, and as a lot of stuff gets released, a lot of bad guys will get an access to it. So we have to fight it already, like the viruses and the antiviruses. The balancing has to be started right now. And then later, maybe once again, forecasting is not my thing, but I feel like we have at least a decade before, some like Skynet type of risk could be even, feasible to us.
A decade. Metaculus says that 2026 is the day, the year that AGI comes along. So you think it happens later, or you think that it takes more than just an AGI to create such a risk?
To me, I mean, I know I'm technically incorrect, but to me, AGI is kind of like already here. This is just my point of view. I mean, that there is, a very specific terms of what AGI is, and like in current form, GPT-4 isn't AGI because it lacks some, capabilities like planning or learning and stuff like that. But to me, I think that AGI is already here because.
Why?
Well, just because from what GPT-4 can do, it just really understands most of the concept in our lives, and it approximates the so many knowledge domains so good, and it's really kind of like does something that wasn't even. So I'm coming from different field of machine learning, the vision models, and we've been training vision models of a lot of sorts for years, and generally we know that simply increasing model size never results in phenomenal performances. Like, for example, you train a segmentation model which can segment kittens in an image, so it returns 0 for pixels that are not cat and 1 for pixels that there are cats. Generally, you can create some very tiny model that probably will not work great. Then you create a little bit bigger model that provides a good results, but then you create the enormous model, and it gives only marginal improvement, if any, because usually if your model even too big, it can overfit, and actually the saturation of the performance can go down. And so the usual approach in the field is to come up with new ideas on how to train the neural nets in the first place, rather than increasing the parameters count. And that's why initially I thought that we shouldn't be expecting anything significant from ChatGPT, because we know from previous experience that just raising the parameter count won't result into anything phenomenal. Like it will. So I thought that it should stay on a more or less the same level, where it just generates text next word that is most likely in a sequence, and that's it. And so when the GPT-4 came out, this was a real black swan, because it really understands the concepts that it talks about. So it's really crazy. So even though it was trained to predict the next word, in reality, it really understands a lot of things, and it is a very powerful reason engine. And so this reason engine, it was unpredictable even like 6 months ago. So we couldn't really see it coming 6 months ago. But turns out that this reasoning engine is kind of like the enabler for everything that we potentially can call the AGI. For example, like, ChatGPT itself can't like even, multiply numbers. It can multiply numbers that it saw several times, like 7 by 7. But if you ask it to, multiply like 1,000 to, 4,121, it will fail to do so. But since the reasoning of the GPT-4 is so reliable, and given that it really understands like more macro concepts, it can, reliably use so-called plugins, where basically how it works is just the model is so good at inserting some particular tokens, where it can understand that, maybe I can't calculate the numbers, but let's insert the token like the plugin start. Then we should put the numbers to multiply into that area. Then we say like plugin end, and some external system, not the model itself, but the external system can interpret that area. So, wow, this model wants us to, call the plugin, and it can call the multiplication plugin, for example, or Python plugin, or Googling plugin, and do whatever things that you can do. And so, even though that, yeah, technically, ChatGPT can't plan or can't learn, it can learn in a limited in the context of its context window. So yeah, it may not know that the war in Ukraine happening because it has a knowledge cutoff on 2021. But you can teach it. You can say it like, hey, Google, like, what's the current situation in this country? It will use the plugin to do so, and you can say like, adjust my financial decisions based on what you found out in it, and it will do so. So my point is that while ChatGPT itself cannot be called an AGI because it just it is not it is not one. The bigger system who uses something like ChatGPT or like open source model, I think already can be called AGI. So it's we already have everything that involves the creation of the AGI. We have the reasoning engine. We have a lot of vision models that can understand what's happening in the image, recognize text. We have models that can generate music, understand speech. So creating an AGI is a matter of, from my perspective, it is a matter of engineering, not the research. So we don't need the breakthrough in a model, or we don't need like a hyper mega super big model to come in order to get the AGI. We just need to create a system who combines existing models with ChatGPT being the missing link in order to create it. And that's why I say that it's already here, because we are not separated from it by some technical impossibility, like that is not achievable. We are separated from it by engineering hours that we have to put it in, and to some degree create at least domain specific AGI who may be not as capable of running a humanoid robot, but can definitely self-improve with an endless cycle, for example, in medical sphere or coding sphere.
Or podcasting sphere.
Yeah.
And AGI, that is the best podcast host. You don't like Lex Fridman, a better version of Lex Fridman. Why don't you like Lex, by the way? What's wrong with him? He's a good guy.
He's an imposter. Like, he pretends to be technical person, while he's definitely not. And his technical takes are extremely bad. And when he promotes himself as a machine learning researcher, that's just laughable. And so I think he kind of like undermines the guests who he invites, because he invites some really brilliant people who could have much more deeper and more thoughtful discussions. But since his discourse in a very low level, from my subjective perspective, he, I think, undermines the potential of the guests. That's why I think that maybe he's not the best podcaster out there.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about if the AGI is already practically here, and you, as you mentioned, can't even imagine your life without it. 24 hours is a challenge going without ChatGPT. Let's talk about how to use it for your own benefit. How you use it, in which spheres of life, how it helps you. I know we've talked about that in private for many, I think for some hours already, and I'm very thrilled about all this. And I'm sure you can teach our audience many things about how they could implement ChatGPT or other large language models into their lives. Let's just first outline the areas and then dig deeper into some of them. Which areas of life should people augment by adding ChatGPT to it?
So I think, since this is like a hot topic, I believe this was more or less discussed several times. So I don't want, to give boring, repetitive takes on how you can generate plots or marketing strategy or stuff. I would love to address two things that I think worth discussing is ChatGPT or LLMs being a killer for Google, like for search engine and coding. Those two things are materially changed in my life in particular, and that I would love to share my thoughts. So let's start with the search engine because it's a simple one from my perspective. So before large language models could cite their sources, I don't think that search engines are exposed to any risk because it's just, different kind of stuff. Yes, it can provide you distilled knowledge, but generally it is untrustable. So you still have to double check what the model gives you because it still can hallucinate a lot of stuff, and it will never. It will never be perfect, never. So just solely because how it works, right? It's just statistically hallucinating the next word. So sometimes the error will occur, even if it's 99% loss. Then there is still chance that it will give you the wrong information. But generally, it is good to have a very short-lived research on some topics, especially on the topics that has, let's say, humanity consensus on something like, I don't know, what dosages of zinc you should take. You can ask ChatGPT and it will give you, averaged opinion across the whole internet, and it will give you some remarks that is not, not a doctor and you should see the real doctor and stuff. So
why should I use ChatGPT for that instead of Google? On Google, I can see in some sources, I can see the source of the information. I can see which website recommends that. For example, if I Google the dosage of zinc to use, and I see the website of some national health service, for example, I would trust it more than I would trust ChatGPT. Why is this the killer for search engines, in your opinion?
No, I think that this is actually a good usage for ChatGPT because you can have a very distilled answer to your question that you may or may not validate later in a search engine. But what I'm trying to say is that searching engine like the Google, with all its flaws, like being SEO, SEO, cluttered, and like algorithms became more ads oriented rather than helping you to find the right information. But inherently, the Google being like the index of the whole internet serves a different purpose, right? So large language models are very slow to update. So, like, for example, ChatGPT has a knowledge cut of 2021. So you can't even access the latest news in it. So unless we develop some, huge vector-based approach where the LLMs can rather search through like embeddings from the internet, cite their sources where you can go, I don't think that search engine is exposed to any concrete risk because it's just different thing. You just need to find a particular discrete website or particular library or particular book, and you will never be able to do it with like the model that it is right now, where all knowledge is baked into the weights of the model. So it has to be once again a bigger system. So it's basically just the search engine that will use the language models to maybe somehow compress the data, and that's why I feel a bit it's just funny to me when people giving takes that Google is dead because like Google actually invented the transformers technology and patented it. That lies in the fundamentals of the ChatGPT, and I think that they will be good. Google has the biggest data collection in the world, and they leading the bleeding edge of the this research. So it is. It's just two different things, right? So ChatGPT can be used to extract some knowledge, general knowledge, but it has to be double checked every time. So especially if it's sensitive stuff like the health, like even the dosages of the thing, maybe it will give you the correct one just because it appeared so many times in the data set that the probability of it being like correct is like 99.999%, but you still shouldn't trust what like the big large language model gives you just solely because of it's not reliable.
Where do you go to ask such questions like which dosage of things should I take? Do you go to Google? Do you go to ChatGPT?
Currently, I go to ChatGPT first. I get a high-level overview of stuff that I want to, but then I double-check it in Google.
And you think this is faster than going to Google first?
Yeah, to me, yes, because it's just you can have a very tailored questions in large language models. The ones that is actually hard to formulate as a searching prompt, because sometimes you have to be very creative on how to find answers to your questions, because the era of forums is dead. Like, recently when the internet was full of forums, you were typing the natural question into the searching bar, and you found the like other people asking the same question in a forum that was indexed. But now, since there is no like we see the dawn of the question answer services where people help each other. Yeah. But this is still, it shrinks, and less and less people go there to help other people. The form of the content now transformed more, in articles or maybe
video,
Instagram
TikToks,
reels,
how to,
and it gets harder and harder to scatter information from it, just solely because of how search engine works. So it's good for particular stuff, like when you has to find like particular news or maybe particular blog post on or a particular research paper. That's maybe something that search engine will never be replaced at. But when you have like a distilled knowledge, when you need the distilled knowledge about some topic, I usually go to ChatGPT now, because it accumulates a lot of textbooks, a lot of articles and stuff, and it can, give you a very, very niche, very, very nuanced, particular answer to a very particular question.
Tailored to your exact question. Yeah, that makes sense. And what about coding? You mentioned the second area.
Yeah, so the coding actually, to me, is the most exciting application of the AI right now, because it will help optimize a lot of text-based tasks in other fields, like maybe editing, the text for news, maybe some generating, B-movie plots, maybe even some creativity will take place, some research. But coding, to my perspective, maybe because I'm biased because I do coding in my day job, will transformatively change how our industry will look, I think maybe in a year or so. So I currently write all my code with ChatGPT, which is honestly still to this date really surprising to me. Like every time I open it in the morning, and every time it writes some very, very complex, sophisticated code for me, I'm really surprised. I can't believe my eyes that it really can do it that good. And when I was banned for 24 hours, that was, I felt very,
You're too dependent on this.
I was like, I felt so weak without it, because currently, like I always thought that, my bottleneck as a programmer is not the typing speed. It is the cognitive, cognitive function that is bottlenecks me. So I never thought that optimizing the speed that I type my code into the editor actually actually stops me from being more productive. And I still kind of like second this idea, but ChatGPT surprisingly is exceptional in coding. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of senior developers on the internet who say that the code is awful. It's like a junior writing code, and sometimes it can have bugs and stuff like. And it's true. It's true to some extent. But the thing is that what I believe is that since the internet is filled with beginner level examples of coding, because usually some advanced stuff isn't there, like in the forms of tutorial or Coursera courses that you can buy for $99. It's just not there. So most of the information about coding is a beginner level, and a lot of it aren't really production oriented. So you can't really, when you read some Medium articles in the internet, it usually doesn't contain very production ready code that there is people actually write in software like, I don't know, Uber or I don't know, Volt delivery application. So it differs. So that's may kind of like justify why ChatGPT responses look a lot of like junior code with some imperfections in architecture and maybe in style and stuff. But the fact that it can do it in the first place gives us a hint that if we can fine-tune the model, some model, maybe not the ChatGPT itself, but like open source Llama model, if we can fine-tune it to the particular patterns and particular approaches and particular language that we want to use to our cases, it can definitely solve higher order problems. And I strongly believe that now nobody in the world knows how to code with an AI properly. So you can do, like, you can find YouTube videos how people create iOS application in 24 hours. That's impressive. Yeah, but those applications are pretty bad. They still need some, hand tuning. But the amount of tasks and complex ideas that LLMs can handle in such an effortless way, where you can say like, give me the screen that has a button, and after pressing the button, it should give the request to the server and download the data and show it. And it does all that, like literally all that, the button, the request, the error handling and stuff. This is just amazing. And I strongly believe that everyone that is involved in the tech industry should learn how to accelerate coding with copilots or just in LLMs. And I strongly believe that we, as an industry, will soon come up with something, let's say, AI-oriented programming, where we will redefine what it even means to know how to code, and what does it even mean to write good code. Because currently, writing code is very human-oriented, right? So we want it to be concise, clear, readable, and stuff. We also want it to be short, because we want to spend less time to read it, and we want to make it reusable. So we write library once, and then we use it in several projects and stuff. Because most of the code that is accessed right now is accessed by humans. But once most of the code will be both accessed and written by AI, we can relax some constraints, right? Maybe we shouldn't be focused on reusability a lot, because LLMs can now write code in like 15 seconds. So maybe we shouldn't reuse the library if we can create new library for each screen every time. So it doesn't matter. Also, readability. Maybe we shouldn't, cover everything with comments and documentation, because we can, just feed it to the model and gives it the result. And so nobody really actually put a significant amount of effort in it. So everybody is like, oh my God, it's crazy. The LLMs can write like iOS application, and it's really crazy and it's really exciting. But we now need to put more thoughts on how to turn it into something that can be production ready, that can big companies use. And I feel like maybe developers will evolve into data producers for LLMs. So instead of writing codes,
we will write prompts.
We'll write prompts, but before prompts, we will write examples, like what the correct answer to that prompt should be in terms of code, And I can see a lot of developers who aren't really good at low-level programming being forced to transform into so-called prompt engineers. And I also can see a lot of developers becoming, teachers, where they spend most of their time at Google or Facebook to annotate, this is wrong, this is the wrong answer, the code should be like that, and this is the right answer. So I think that the big companies should accumulate more advanced data to fine-tune their models on, so that they can produce more production-ready code for their use cases. And I think that future is really around the corner, because I'm on Twitter a lot, and I see that some brilliant people there already use ChatGPT like on a daily basis, and I use it too. And that the thing that it can do from the baked knowledge from the 2021 is incredible. And I can't even imagine what would be possible if we, fine-tune it on some modern data, which is tailored with some advanced techniques, some production-ready techniques. I think that this will be the disruptive change to the whole tech industry.
Interesting times we live in, huh? So maybe the future of not just the programming jobs, but also other jobs will radically transform, and we will all become prompt engineers or AI helpers, assistants for AIs.
To some degree, I think, it is going to happen to some degree. I don't think that we will see like massive job shortages in a short term, because I think that a lot of what AI can do is enhancing rather than replacing. So it can really amplify what humans do, but it can't really replace us that many. Maybe some very repetitive work, like supporting like the terrible chatbots that we encounter each day, like when companies trying to optimize the human support on a telephone. It will get better definitely, and less people will be involved. Some text-based professions will get better, but I feel like every creative specialist shouldn't be worried at the moment. Maybe coders should be somewhat worried, but everything else I think should learn how to become like 1.5x more productive than in a non-AI era.
Well, I'm looking forward, on the one hand, to this future where we become 1.5x more productive, or even 5 times more productive, or even 500 times more productive. But on the other hand, I'm still not convinced that the risks that we will face are within our grasp, and that it's possible that we survive. So it's interesting, to say the least. But in any case, I'm sure that we should use AIs while we can to make the best of the time we have, while we as humans are still the dominant species on planet Earth. Andrey, thank you very much. If you, our viewers and listeners, are interested in more content about neural networks, ChatGPT, maybe more content part 2 with Andrey, please write your comments about that, and we will think about whether we can organize another podcast. Thank you very much. Please subscribe, leave a comment, like. See you next time. This is Greg Mazdrid Podcast. Bye-bye.